Hello, pharmacy world. This is Dr. Lisa Faast with Diversify RX with another great episode for you today. Now, I have a wonderful banking partner on, and you're probably thinking bank, I don't want to learn about banks, but frankly, having a wonderful bank partner for independent pharmacy owners, I think is critical to your success. A lot of times pharmacy needs money, whether it's to buy stuff, buy new locations, working capital, grow, take advantage of opportunities. There's a lot of reasons that you need a good banking partner. And I'm using that word actually very carefully because you could go to lots of banks and you can apply for lots of things, but those really aren't partners in your business. And I think pharmacy owners need to take advantage of banking partners more often than what I think our natural tendencies lend us to do, because a good banking partner can help your pharmacy thrive and be profitable, which of course is all what we are about here at Diversify RX. So I have Schwanda with me from First Financial Bank, and we're just going to be having a nice little discussion about just banking and pharmacy and all the different things that you might need. Schwanda, welcome to the call. Thank you for spending some time with me. Thank you for, pouring into pharmacy owners, as I know the entire team over at First Financial Bank does. Go ahead and just introduce yourself, introduce First Financial Bank, because people listening might not have heard of you guys or even know that you specialize in pharmacy. So just give us a little bit of background, please.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. I'm Dr. Schwanda Flowers, and I am a pharmacist. So in addition to being a lender in the pharmacy space, I also owned a community pharmacy. Really have invested, my entire career into independent community pharmacy. And so it's very near and dear to my heart, both from a practitioner standpoint and then also from a business and finance standpoint. So First Financial Bank, we are a community bank, and, we really pride ourselves in focusing on independent ownership. So that may be in the pharmacy space, it may be in the veterinary space. We also, do some other things as far as farm and ranch and some poultry loans. And so we do have a lot of different areas that we cover. But one thing that we do that's a little bit different is that we have specialized lenders who focus in one area. And so we have lenders who focus in on the pharmacy space. That's all they do. They don't lend for other businesses, but they really spend a lot of time being invested and involved in the industry, learning about, the challenges that are going in pharmacy, what owners need, how we can help them. And it makes a huge difference in the experience that you have with First Financial Bank. We are a preferred SBA lender. And so we focus mostly on SBA loans and hopefully make that process seamless for our customers.
Yeah, I've gone through the SBA loan process many, many years ago, and it was arduous. There were many times that I tell people I was in tears through the process because, I went with obviously a different bank way back then. And I didn't really feel like I had somebody holding my hand through the process. I felt like it was very principal office-ish. Like I only heard from them when I did something wrong or I didn't do something. And it was so it is a very process. They've made great improvements to that program. But when you say you're a preferred SBA lender, I know what that means. I've been through the process, but I bet you there's a bunch of people listening that don't really know what that means. Can you just kind of go into that, and what is the benefits of working with the preferred SBA lender as opposed to just somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great question because what we find is that you mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of choices for banks, and we are a community bank. And so, I love it when we have customers who say, I really want to support my community bank, and I've been talking to them about a loan. However, if it's not someone that does SBA loans on a regular basis, it can be a really difficult process. And there are a lot of regulations in place with SBA loans. Those are really meant to protect the borrower and to really encourage small business. And so sometimes it seems like we've got red tape and we've got some, difficult things that we have to, kind of hoops to jump through. But at the end of the day, they really are wonderful things in place to help small business owners grow, expand, or, jump into ownership for the first time. A preferred lender what that means is that we do our own in-house SBA underwriting. So we don't have to send the loans to the SBA for underwriting. Our underwriters can do that in-house, which means the process is much faster. We have that expert in place so that we can be communicating with them on a daily basis. We don't have to wait for a response, potentially from the SBA when, they have tons of people emailing and calling them. And so it makes the process smoother, a lot faster, and really just the experience of doing it every day allows us to understand, what deals will work with the SBA and what won't. You might spend several months with another bank to come to find out that it won't work and that the deal won't work that way.
So what kind of needs can pharmacies come to you for? Because there's lots of needs I kind of alluded to in the beginning that a pharmacy owner might need money. There's lots of reasons they might need money. But what are those reasons? Like, how do you interact with pharmacy owners? What kind of solutions are you offering for their money needs? Because I wouldn't say there's one magic bank that just takes care of everything. Usually there's specialties and niches and things that you are preferring to lend for. So what are those types of things?
Yeah, so we really offer a lot of different products for pharmacists and for independent pharmacies. And so one of those, would be that we even start at the point where they're still in school. So student pharmacists. So we provide a lot of education about what does this look like to be an owner. So whether they're a pharmacy student, whether they're a young pharmacist who they're thinking about ownership, there's a lot of and support there to figure out how do we write a business plan? What's the difference between a startup or acquiring a practice? And so we do startup loans. We also do acquisitions. So, if you've been working at a pharmacy for many years and that pharmacist is ready to retire, or you want to go back to your hometown, or you have found the perfect location for your family with a pharmacy and you'd like to acquire that business, we do those acquisition loans. We also do expansions. So we have lots of pharmacists who now, they're established in one location. They would like to buy another location, either same town, next town over, whatever that might be, potentially build a new building. Maybe they want to get into compounding or specialty. So we can provide expansion loans for those pharmacists wanting to grow and build their business. And we also do construction. So if you've got a pharmacy you would like to buy some real estate and build a space, we can also do the construction loans as well. Go ahead. Sorry, Lisa.
No, I was going to say that's a great variety because many owners I've actually talked to a weird increased amount. Like it always seems to comes in ebbs and flows of people who are wanting to buy their first pharmacy, and they're either I usually talk to them in the differences between acquiring and a startup, because that's usually the first decision in that decision tree of pharmacy ownership of what you're going to do. And it seems like there's just a ton out there that are now wanting to get into pharmacy. But
yeah, I think you're right, because, and you remember, I think when at a pharmacy school, you have a lot of great ideas about how you want to practice and, how you want to take care of your patients. And, you spent a lot of time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears, into getting our degree. And so thinking about a startup, I think is very tempting to a lot of young pharmacists, because you can build it the way you want it. You might not want to work in a corporate environment where, a chain environment where it's just not the same. You're not able to, sort of have the freedom to practice the way you wanted to, or you envisioned it. And so startups are really, I do think that most pharmacists think about a startup first. What I often do is encourage them to step back and be sure that there's not a pharmacy in the area that's just ripe, for an acquisition. And often, right now, what we know based on statistics is that the average age of pharmacy owners is over 62. So, if that's the average age of pharmacy owners across the country, there are lots of them who are going to be ready to retire. And that puts young pharmacists who are interested in ownership in a really good position to find stores, in areas that they're interested in order to take over and grow and make it their own, even if it's not a startup.
Yeah, my very first pharmacy was a startup pharmacy. And when people ask me about it, my best answer is if I would have known how hard it was going to be and the mountain I would have climbed beforehand, I might not have decided to go that route. I'm very happy that I went that route now, but almost sometimes being a little naive can be a blessing because you just focused on what do I need to do today? And then you do that today. And then tomorrow you focus on what I need to do today and you just take it one day at a time. But if I would have known the entire journey, because it's very, very tiny little steps. Nothing is actually very hard, but when you put 1,000 little tiny steps together, it becomes hard. And so I think you're right in that sometimes it is easier to acquire. And then sometimes you do find that perfect desert of a pharmacy where opening a startup can be the best thing, which is what I did in my first pharmacy. So we are talking about borrowing money. And of course, one of the biggest chattering happening in our world today, I don't think you can turn on the news without hearing about it, is interest rates. So we're talking about borrowing money. And of course, if interest rates go up, that can make borrowing money harder or harder to qualify or make payments higher. How has the current interest rate, world that we're in, where interest rates are increasing, inflationary pressures are there, how has that impacted these SBA loans and SBA programs with their interest rates or the availability of money even?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are hearing a lot about it. And I think that I would probably be worried about a potential customer if they didn't talk to me about interest rates and their concerns around inflation and interest rates, because obviously it's probably going to impact, many areas of our lives, not just specifically a loan that we're applying for. For us, the availability of money is still there. But what we look at from a business loan perspective, and I think that that's something worth pointing out because it's not the same as going to get a home loan or getting a car and you say, okay, well, how much are you making each year? What is your salary? How much can we lend you based on that? Business loans are based on cash flow. So whether that's cash flow of the existing business or cash flow projections of a startup, that's how we determine how much, along with other factors. I mean, you need to look attractive to a bank, from a personal financial standpoint as well. But really, that's what we're looking at. And so the difference that interest rates make in that equation is that obviously one of the main, concerns that we're looking at is, can the cash flow that the business provides service the debt? And as interest rates go up, that debt obviously goes up, and what you owe the bank each month and each year is more. And so we have to be sure the cash flow of the business can cover the debt at a higher interest rate. So that's the biggest difference that from a business loan perspective that we're looking at. Obviously, as a customer, you do want to think about, am I getting the right rate? Is this the best time for me? Do I have the cash reserves that I might need? But as a partner, and I think that was an important point you made earlier, if you're talking with a lender and they're not talking with you about those projections and what if interest go up again and what does this look like, walking you through the cash flow to help you understand what that really means and looks like, you might need to find another partner. Because really, that's our job. That's what we should be doing. We should help that customer every, step of the way, really understand, okay, when we say that we're looking at cash flow and can you service your debt, what does that mean? And how are we calculating that? And let me walk you through, what that looks like. That's what it means to be a partner. And so I do think that people are pausing right now and watching interest rates. However, at the end of the day, if it is a good business opportunity and it's the right time and it's the right opportunity in the right place, you need to continue to move forward and not let, the interest rate necessarily make that decision for you. There are a lot of factors to consider outside of just the interest rates.
No, I think that's a very important point. And that's what we're doing now. I mean, we just closed on one pharmacy this summer and maybe looking to close on a few more by the end of the year. And it's all about the deal. It has to be the right business, the right location, the right amount. And all of those factors are just as important, like you said, as the interest rate. And we all know, debt can be refinanced and things like that in the future, so that you're not necessarily stuck with it. And frankly, we're still fairly low. We've been spoiled the last many years with like ultra low interest rates. And if you remember back into the the 80s and early 90s, like we're actually at pretty good interest rates now. It's just higher than it has been. So it's really not terrible. Business has continued to be able to happen, even in the past at those other interest rates. So, we've talked about getting a partner. So if somebody's listening to this and they are maybe thinking about expanding, maybe they are that student. I do a lot of talking at several universities for that last year of people that are interested in pharmacy ownership. So we do have a lot of students that are listening to this. If they want to understand a little bit more and get educated, you mentioned cash flow. Obviously, pharmacists are good at math, but we're often terrible at finance, because finance math is different math. And, if they want to get some of that education and they want to start finding out who their best banking partner would be, what resources do you have, or where can you direct them to reach out to you guys in order to get kind of that help and foundational information that they need?
Yeah, anybody who's interested in information, whether or not we end up being able to take care of them and do the deal, and lend them the money or not, we want to be a resource for the industry. And so our number one goal is that we provide great resources for pharmacists interested in ownership and expansion. And so at the end of the day, that is our goal. And we have a ton of great resources on our website. And so www.ffb1.com. So that is First Financial Bank One, the number one.com. Has a ton of resources. We have a whole section dedicated to pharmacy lending specifically. And so go to that webpage and click on our pharmacy lending pages. We have loan calculators. We have all sorts of recordings, podcasts, shows, webinars, everything that we have done. We've got a great repository of information there that people can check out. We also have a great blog where we talk about topics and trends and just things that pharmacists will find very useful. There's tools for writing a business plan. So just wonderful resources there. And then you can always contact me, reach out and email me, sflowers@ffb1.com. And we'll share our contact information so everybody will have that as well. But I'd love to hear from anybody that's interested. And again, however we can be a resource and help encourage independent ownership, that's what we want to do.
No, you guys do have an amazing website with lots of resources. So even if you're not thinking that you need money now, which sometimes is the best time to get money is when you don't need it, but just start educating yourself. I think pharmacy owners in general, we need to brush up on our financial skills because they are different than just math skills. A lot of times people think, oh, money is math, but it's different. And I think it's important that pharmacy owners really understand that financial side so you can make better decisions to run your pharmacies more profitably. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, Schwanda. We'll put all your contact information in the notes below. So if you're watching or listening to this, feel free to go back and refer to the show notes. We'll have all of Schwanda's information there and links to all of First Financial Bank's wonderful resources. So thank you so much. I know people will continue to see you at the various trade shows and things like that. And thank you for continuing to help independents and help them thrive. That's certainly our mission as well. So greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Schwanda.
Thank you so much for having me.